Hey guys, I'm Sage Valentine and I'm back to review another episode of AMC's The Walking Dead. This time I'm reviewing Season 6, Episode number 13, The Same Boat. So this episode, in my opinion, was a little bit slower than the previous episodes. It could be described as a bit of a buffer, but all in all, I enjoyed how it turned out, and it was nice to have a little bit of a slow down and chill before we get to the meat of this season, before we meet Negan. And in this episode, Carol showed us how truly resilient, quick thinking, and resourceful that she is. And I do believe that the kills that she has made or done in the past couple seasons have finally started to affect her, and now she's trying to come to terms with the fact that she had to kill said people. But does this proverbial come to Jesus moment mean that Carol's going to die? Honestly, no, because eventually everybody on this series is going to die. But that doesn't mean that I'm not worried for her at all. In fact, I've been worried about Carol since season 5, to be exact. I think that even though Shell and Paula have similarities to Carol and Maggie, their differences are that Carol and Maggie did not turn dark, did not turn cold, and are not empty. They still have a grasp on their humanity. Carol did what she had to do to protect the group. Even though Rick did not agree with what she did to kill Karen and David, she did it for the group. She didn't just do it all willy-nilly. And as far as Shell was concerned, Shell, to be honest, had that boyfriend. The boyfriend was one of the people that was blown up, I'm assuming, that was on the road with Daryl and Abe and Sasha. But the only thing was, like, Shell was just like, oh, I just wanted to get his body parts, but really I just didn't care about him. And that's completely different from Maggie, because if that was Glenn that was dead, Maggie would be a basket case even to this day, and she would still do what she'd have to do, but she still would have her feelings and still would be crying over Glenn. The one thing I like about the Saviors is that they have this really big sanctuary type place where they live, but they have so many satellite branches and groups around to throw people off that it is ridiculous. Now, with that said, Paula's group, they obviously were saviors. That group in the building in last week's episode that Rick and the crew killed, they were saviors. But just so you know, the saviors, as I've said previously, it's a really big group. Are they the biggest that we have seen in the comics so far? I don't know, because we really don't know how many people make up the group known as the Whispers that are at this point led by Alpha. So I'm just going to say that at this point, the Saviors are the biggest as far as the television show is concerned until Alpha is introduced. Now, as far as that scene where Donnie was acting a fool and trying to undermine Paula and went after Carol despite being told not to, hit Paula in the face, kicked Carol, and kind of slammed around Maggie a bit. It reminded me of the scene in the comics whereas this dude snuck into the room where Holly was being held and was basically about to rape her, and then Negan stopped him because he killed him. And you guys are probably like, Sage, how is that similar? Because of Paula's reaction and the way that Paula just decided to kill him, it reminded me so much of Negan that it was ridiculous. I'm probably the only person that feels this way, on top of the fact that it goes along with Negan's whole thing of not hurting women and this whole not raping women thing. You guys are probably like, well, he wasn't going to rape Carol. We don't know what he was going to do until Paula stopped him, to be completely honest. So during the course of the episode, we learned that Miles had tuberculosis because she smoked that cigarette and then she started coughing and kept coughing, and I was just like, yeah, she has TB. And despite the fact that death is looming around the corner, I mean, tuberculosis is like a pretty crappy way to go at any time during this day and age. But if you're thinking about like the zombie apocalypse and having to deal with something like that without the proper medicine, it's a pretty sucky way to go. And then smoking cigarettes is not making it any better. So she was saved from a very, very uncomfortable death, even though her death kind of sucked. But she still didn't have to spend the rest of her life just coughing and coughing and coughing until she coughed up a lung or something. We learned that Shells had a boyfriend, and the boyfriend was one of the people that was blown up by Daryl, that RPG. And she wanted to go get his body, or at least what was left, and she stole a car, and I think she siphoned some gas, and I guess she was able to get what she got, or what she wanted to get. But when she came back, she lost a finger. And I think that Negan was the person that chopped off that finger, because in the comic books, Negan pretty much delves out or gives out the punishments and the discipline himself. And one instance in particular that comes to mind has to be the whole like iron scene on this one dude's face. Like, I'm sure that we'll probably, I'm hoping as well that we'll see that on the TV show, because it's something else. That's all I have to say. It was one thing to see it in the comics, but to see it on the show, like, it's just gonna make everybody go, ugh, gross. And one of my favorite scenes in this episode was the whole bait and switch scene where Carol and Maggie led those dudes to that quote-unquote kill room. And then I believe it was Carol that shut the door, and she threw the lighter in the room and it set them ablaze. And there was no way those two guys could get out of that room. And I was like, Carol is so badass. Like, that was an awesome idea. Well, I learned two things while watching this episode. That Carol basically blames herself for this situation because she feels like if she had killed Donnie, then none of this would have happened. And it's not her fault, because it seemed like it was inevitable, like something crazy was going to happen to Carol and Maggie because they were basically out there alone. And it's not like Carol to not know that someone is in the area or someone is around, because she ended up being more focused on trying to protect Maggie, being that Maggie was pregnant, even though we can tell that Maggie can hold her own. As far as Paula goes, I do believe that Paula could have been an asset to Rick's group. However, at this point where Maggie and Carol basically came across her, she was too far gone. There was no way to save her. I'm sure some people are probably like confused. Why are all these people calling themselves Negan? Does Negan exist? Yes, Negan does exist. And these people call themselves Negan because they're basically brainwashed and blindly following this dude. But I wouldn't say that they are the most brainwashed people so far in the Walking Dead universe. Just wait till you see the whispers. That's all I have to say to you. Just wait. Just wait. And the deaths that occurred in this episode are just another number to tally, to tack on that list that Negan will hold Rick's group accountable for. You can bet your bottom dollar on that one. So in the end of the episode, Maggie reveals that, I guess after fighting these people, getting slammed around and shells slicing her stomach, that she can't do it anymore. And just so you know, that means that more than likely the group is going to end up taking Maggie to Hilltop, and she's going to stay there. Now, as far as the comic book goes, as I've said, when Maggie stays at the Hilltop, if that's the way they're going with this story, on the road back will lead to somebody's death. Now, all of these media outlets keep saying that it's more than likely going to be either Daryl or Glenn. At this point, it's up in the air. But given that Maggie feels the way she feels, I'm so worried about Glenn. It's ridiculous. But that's about it, guys. Don't forget to rate this video. Leave me your comments. Let me know what you thought about this episode and the season so far. And if you have any comic book questions at all, definitely leave them below this video. And for all you carolers that watch my review, meaning the people who want Carol and Daryl to get together, don't lose faith, because apparently next week's episode will finally show Carol and Daryl interacting, because it's been a while since those two have sat down and had a conversation. But I'll see you guys next Sunday. I love you all. Bye, guys. Bye.